All right, give this a shot. I'm going to attempt to sell you on meditation. If I've already lost you, that sucks. Just give it a shot. Because I know what it feels like to hear the word meditation. I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up to a father who built log homes, hunts, fishes, played college football and college rugby, was a really good wrestler, was a fantastic human being, a dancer, like it loves funk music, big drinker, partier, fun time haver, ultra disciplined, greatest man I've ever met. And my mother, was an artist, but she's a fucking boss lady, like executive type. So she went to school for art, but she's like a marketing wizard, and she works with entrepreneurs and builds companies, and she's just honestly the fucking Jedi master when it comes to marketing and business. And I grew up in southeastern Wisconsin and near Milwaukee, and I grew up in the suburbs, and I didn't grow up around the concept of meditation at all. In my head, meditation was really relegated to two things. It was the thing that I saw in the kung fu movies that looked cool, and the thing that fucking the hippies do that with the fingers and shit. And then I'm like, what the fuck is that? I know what it feels like to hear the word meditation and go, great, fucking this bullshit again. But let me sell you on it, okay? The biggest question that I've ever found myself trying to answer is, why can't I get myself to do things that I actually want to do? What is the gap between thought and action? I want to go to the gym. Why can't I get myself to go to the gym? I want to wake up at 4 in the morning every morning. Why can't I get myself to set the alarm? Or when it goes off in the morning, why do I snooze it? Why can't I want to get up at 4 a.m., but when it comes to that moment when I am up at 4 a.m., why do I go back to sleep? What is the thing that gets you to do things you actually want to do? It's been probably the biggest question that's driven my curiosity towards everything, and especially in my recovery from childhood sexual abuse, alcoholism, and suicide. That question drove me to more understanding and more real change in my life than almost any other question. And I answered that question by learning meditation. Because meditation at its simplest is training yourself to stay inside of a moment that everything else inside of you wants to leave. And it's like endurance. How long can you stay in a moment that you want to leave? And you have no idea how much that transfers to every other realm, and especially to the question I already posed. Let's talk about addiction, okay? I was severely, life-threateningly addicted to alcohol. Why? Because, well, obviously the pattern builds over time and then it just becomes a feedback loop. But in the beginning, it started, regardless of the fact that I didn't even realize it, that I had internal feelings based on the childhood sexual abuse that I didn't know yet, that I didn't realize I was having, that I would have told you I wasn't having, but was. And when I would have those feelings, I wanted to escape how I felt. So escape, you hear that all the time. So I turned to alcohol. Not on purpose, but because over time I accidentally realized that even though I didn't realize I was feeling a certain way, when I drank, I felt a better way. And every time that moment would come up where I feel a certain way, I would realize, without even realizing it, I don't like this, but I know if I drink, I'm going to like that. And so that pattern developed. It was basically me leaving the moment. When it comes to discipline, why can't you get yourself to go to the gym? Because the second you start thinking about going to the gym, you start thinking into the future, outside of the moment, about all the things that go into going to the gym. I'm going to look stupid. I don't know what to do. I'm not strong. I look gross in the mirror. I'm afraid. I'm tired. I'm sore. I don't want to do this. Do I even really... All that is you escaping the moment and jumping into the future. Why do you do that? Because I think it's the human experience that when left untrained just jumps in every direction. I think that's just what your mind does. And even your body too. Your body is built to survive. It's built to endure life. And if you don't realize that, the drive for survival first overcomes everything. Whether you're in survival mode or not, you want to survive. You want to avoid threat. It's the natural human experience. And so when you think about going to the gym, all these thoughts you have when you're in the future start to become threats. And in order to avoid the threat, you avoid that future and you do something different in the present to avoid this potential future that feels like threat. I want to write a book. Why can't you sit down and write? For the same reasons, And even think about into the past. It's not always that you're jumping into the future. Sometimes you jump into the past. That's what I think depression is. I think depression is attention focused on the past. Think about every time you've ever been depressed. What are you thinking about? You're thinking about things that have happened or patterns of things that have happened. I'm depressed. Why? I feel sad. Why? Well, because this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, this continues to happen. What is all that? It's in the past. You're outside of the moment. And so when you learn meditation, you basically put yourself in the most uncomfortable experience I believe man or humans can have, which is the present moment. Because especially in the modern world, when there's all these kind of things that, some fucking caveman didn't have back in the day, it's almost easy. Well, whatever. That's a tangent. In the modern world, there's lots of distractions. There's lots of fears. There's lots of potential. There's endless potential. There's endless futures, which makes moving anywhere confusing if you let your mind jump to all these futures. So what you do in meditation is you force yourself to sit still, because what you really want to do is create the environment for the moment to sustain itself long enough to become uncomfortable. So you sit still. Yes, you don't have to sit still, but I would argue it's the best place to learn. So you sit still, you close your eyes, and you breathe, because you want to narrow your focus down to a singular thing that continues to repeat. What's the only thing outside of your heartbeat that does that in your body? Your breath, okay? You breathe, you count in through your belly for 4 count. You exhale. Exhale longer than your inhale. Just trust me on that, right? So what I always did is I counted into 4 and out for 6. Sit down, sit still, don't move, close your eyes, and try to breathe and repeat that count. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, over and over. Eventually, you'll find that it's very difficult to continue to do that, because you want to move, shift your weight, open your eyes, readjust. You start thinking about something. You start thinking about other things. You start feeling things. Jumps you out of paying attention to that moment and that breath count. And you start to realize you're just getting pulled, and all of a sudden you realize you're sitting there and you're just daydreaming about shit. Off into the future. You're not in the moment anymore. So you bring yourself, you notice you've left the moment. Bring yourself back. Continue. It's excruciating, because you will hit a point where everything in you, you're actually holding the line of tension of the present moment. You're actually doing it. And then it reaches like a breaking point, and there's like everything is fighting for you to leave the moment. What does it take to stay? It takes presence. You are committing to presence, and it doesn't get easier. It just continues to feel like a taut line of tension, and all you're doing is just, it's like, some invisible void in the distance has one end of the rope and you have the other, and you're both pulling as hard as you can, and all you're doing, you're not moving, you're sitting there holding tension, breathing in, breathing out, and you're just seeing how long you can last. And it's not even about lasting, because even that is thinking into the future. You're just there. And when you learn that skill, it translates to everything in your life, because it's all the same mechanism, right? When you go to the gym, start thinking in the future. If you know that skill, if you have that skill, you notice you're thinking in the future, bring your attention back to the present. And now you're just doing whatever it is you're doing. And you're doing that to the fullest extent in the present moment. And you jump. It's like the moment never leaves, but it continues to move. And you just stay inside that moment, right? And you avoid all of the random thoughts and feelings that move everywhere else. You won't even avoid them, because you'll notice them, but you'll stay inside the moment, because you built the skill of holding on to the tension. When everything is trying to pull you apart, you're staying there, and you continue to move forward. Translates to addiction. That's how you cure addiction. I honestly believe that. You teach someone how to be present. Because then, when they have that internal feeling that drives them to their addiction, what are they doing? They're escaping the moment. You teach them how to stay in the moment in the midst of the suffering of the moment. And you continue. And when you can hold that line of tension, eventually what you realize is that you come to a point where you get good enough at this and you realize, why am I fighting so hard to stay in the present moment? It actually doesn't take any effort at all. And that's the confusing part. It takes no effort at all to be present. And that's terrifying to the human spirit, because I think that the human experience wants to feel like it's doing something. I don't know if that makes sense. And so if it's not doing anything, then it's like, what is that? You could, your mind could jump. Oh, if nothing's happening, then I'm nothing. If I'm nothing, then I'm nothing. And you freak out. And that's panic. And it takes you other places. And many other, spirals that come from that. But holding that line of tension is the most transferable skill. It's like, if you wanted to, I almost wish I had a business where I found like the richest people in the world. And I told them that I could make their life easy. They're insanely busy schedules. I can make it easy because they're fighting against that drive to escape the moment all the time. They're just really good at it. But they're fighting it, and you could make their productivity more. I don't know. I'm going off on a tangent. Whatever. Forget all that. My point is that meditation is the only thing I believe that can actually train presence, because there's no other way. Like, meditation isn't even like a specific thing. It's just the act of holding on and being still and staying in the moment. And that's the only thing that teaches you how the moment works. Because if you never explore the moment through a still, intentional practice like meditation, you never learn the moment. If you never learn the moment, you never learn what it takes to be in the moment. And if you never know that, then anytime you want to escape, you don't even realize that's what's happening. And that's the reason for most suffering, is that you're escaping the moment, but you don't even know that. So my argument is that meditation exposes you to the truth of the moment, teaches you how to stay in the moment, and gives you the proof that you can stay, that you end up falling back on anytime the moment you want to get taken out of the moment. You realize, I've been here before. I know how this works. I know what I should do, even if it goes against everything my mind is telling me. And I stop fighting. And I just give in to the nothingness that is the moment. And I move forward. I'm nothing. Keep going. That's where that saying comes from. That's my pitch. Like, I hope I'm doing that justice, because like if everybody learned meditation, it would be a fucking utopia. It would literally, that's how, if somebody asked me, how would you change the world? If you could snap your fingers and you could change the world the best way you could possibly think, what I would say is I would have everybody understand and learn the skill of presence through meditation. That's how I would change the world. I really believe it is the most powerful thing in the entire world is presence, and you can only learn that through meditation.